I'm going to start off by showing appreciation for 300 subscribers. Holy shit. I mean, that's a lot. Might not be 300,000, but who cares? 300 people, dang. That's still a lot of people. And you could fill a stadium with that video. I don't know. You could fill bleachers for like a high school concert with 300 people. That's still a lot. That's pretty nerve-wracking. I don't know how many people realize that. Anyway, so thank you. That's really nice. And I couldn't address that last time because I had recorded my last video without checking anything. I wasn't looking at that kind of stuff. I was just being like, gotta make this video. And I did write in my description, not that anybody looks at them, but I wrote it down in there. I was like, oh, thanks. And so I think I don't have any other preamble, so I'm gonna jump right into it now. And I have been wanting to do this for a couple weeks now, probably maybe even a month. I wanted to review, I guess if that's the word I might want to use, I'm not entirely sure. Observation, I suppose. I don't know. Of Abigail Shrier. I don't. Pardon me if she's watching. I'm sorry. I'm gonna go with Shrier. This is her first book. A lot of people are like, "Holy shit, you know how to write. This is really good." And so far, I haven't read the whole thing. I just bought it the other day on Kindle, and so far, it's written really, really well, and I actually love some of the quotes that she put in there. I mean, some of the writing that she's done, and I've pulled quotes from it, which is really amazing. And all I really know about her background is that she was a journalist before. That's it. That's all I know. And anyway, so I wanted to look at her book and try to grab some of the stuff that she's written and like analyze it in terms of like my own experience. Can I relate to this? And other things, and hopefully other people can learn from it as I go along. So basically my structure is going to be something like, I'm going to read every chapter by myself, and then I'm going to like kind of pretty much summarize it. I forgot to show that this is what the book looks like. I'll show it on screen anyway too. I'll pretty much be like summarizing the chapters and paying more close attention to things that I find really interesting and that I have an opinion on. That's what I'm mostly going to be doing. She has 11 chapters and then an afterword, the update, whatever that is. I haven't gotten to it yet. Like I said, I haven't reached the conclusion yet. I haven't finished it. So this first one, it's the introduction. She calls it the contagion, which is like really fitting. It's almost like a plague. This thing that in this case little girls look into. And obviously the introduction is going to show like kind of the basis of what's kind of going on. It gives it like a general feel of what, like, the first example she puts down is a girl named Lucy, and she's pretty much like, Lucy's like the face of it. She's the prime example. And then, she talks about, not Lucy, Abigail talks about like other issues that go within this thing. So I'm gonna end this video on like some of the things that I've noticed as a theme as I'm writing down. Not like criticizing Abigail, but I'm saying like what exactly is, like, can I sum it up as to like what exactly is the cause. So I'm gonna jump into like what, like, let's talk about Lucy. Everybody loves Lucy. No, Yeah, so Lucy's awkward, and she fails social tests by girls, finds boys easier to be around. Older sister stole away parents' attention with drug abuse. Because of her sister's drug abuse and the parents paying a lot of attention to that, understandably, Lucy develops bipolar disorder too, and that is a very interesting point, but I can't really say too much on that because I don't personally have it. I don't really understand the connection between bipolar disorder and being trans, but so a deep desire to fit in and belong, feel loved and accepted. She attends liberal arts college and discovers the the gay lesbian community, makes new friends here, and the solution to their problems is quickly summed up with gender dysphoria, even though Lucy was never gender dysphoric in her entire life up until that point. So, one of the quotes that I really loved in this part was, "Within a year, Lucy had begun a course of testosterone, but her real drug, the one that hooked her, was the promise of a new identity. A shaved head, boys' clothes, and a new name formed the baptismal waters of a female-to-male rebirth," which I found that to be very intense wording. Whoa, like rebirth, baptism, like whoa, dang. Lucy had sudden onset gender dysphoria, so it didn't exist when she was younger. In fact, she hated even looking like a boy with a pixie cut because her mom is telling Abigail that like what for whatever reason, it doesn't say in the book, but for whatever reason the mom not shaves, but just like really cuts it trim to a pixie haircut, and she just cries buckets because she looks like a boy. Oh no. And I don't know, if Lucy were really a boy, I don't think he would care. Be like, oh yeah, well, that's just how it should be. But whatever. And obviously, like, sudden onset is a problem. Like, and then Abigail moves on to other trans people that she talked to, and she's saying that she, like, talked to a bunch of other people, detransitioners, trans people, trans activists alike, and when she was talking to like these older trans people, they would state that their bodies felt wrong, a lie. Uh, Gender dysphoria is embarrassing and uncomfortable, uh, as opposed to like something to be proud of and to flaunt or something. And she was saying, or these people were saying, that they just want to just kind of blend in, don't really want any attention on themselves. And I do see that even with like people like uh, Blair White and Rose of Dawn, people like them. They're those types of people who are like, I just want to live my life. I don't need trans activists to like make me valid. And I think that's very sane and very okay to say and to think. Abigail makes it clear that they aren't activists and just normal people. Abigail's saying her point really is they're not to blame for this craze. Abigail brings up the history of phases girls have experienced that cause them harm, which I very much agree with. I think that's a very apt thing to do. Nervous disorders of the 18th century. I don't know what this is. I'm gonna have it on the screen. Neurasthenia in the 19th century. Anorexia nervosa, repressed memory. I've never heard of repressed memory. Bulimia and cutting in the 20th century, which I'm sure bulimia and cutting are still very much things that girls do still today. Cross-sex hormones and top surgery are the new liposuction, which she didn't write that down. That's my own thought. It's like that's what it is. So, and then the culprit in these cases are always peer pressure and self-diagnosis. So, like those two mixed together, or even sometimes therapists diagnosing you with it. Like, that's so extremely dangerous. Uh, and then Abigail then quickly moves on to the First Amendment and shining light on the offensive nature of pronouns and law enforcement. So people, medical staff would see jail time if they refused to use the person's preferred pronouns. And then Abigail compares this to the West Virginia State Board of Education versus Barnett Supreme Court stuff, where the Supreme Court enabled the right for students to not salute the flag if they so wished, and, rightly so. Word or faith police are unconstitutional because that limits people's freedom, and we're allowed to say pretty much anything that we want, as long as it's not extremely threatening. And pronouns are not threatening, that is not violence. Not saluting the flag, that's also not violence. And then she points out that the internet supplies resources for those questioning their gender, the discrete packaging of like binders and packers and stuff. A lot of these websites would be like, oh, we're gonna like just have like, we'll just send you a freaking cardboard box, and then like it was discreet packaging purely because if your parents don't know, if you're out, like they don't know that you're trans yet, or they're like, because they're like bigoted or something, or whatever you perceive them to be as, they won't be able to know. Which, like, when I was doing it, like, it felt nice that it was like discreet, because like, even though I was out to my family, it was still like, I don't want them to see what I'm doing, which I think that's a little weird. And then she goes on to say, like, the doctors, like, how to persuade the doctors into giving you hormones, although it's a lot easier now. It really depends on where you are. Like, for me, I didn't have to do any persuasion because that was just, you just went in, hand me the drugs, that was it. That was the requirement. Teaching youth to break away from family regardless of like whether or not they're abusive or neglectful, even if they're like the best family you've ever had, like a really good family who are just very concerned, but they've taken care of them really well. This person, this child who thinks that they're the opposite sex, like that kid will see their parent as being abusive, so then they'll go onto the internet and see this supply of the community being like, oh, we'll help you. And and to me, like the secretive nature of all of this feels wrong. I mean, I understand that we could compare it to like gays and lesbians back in yonder year. I don't know, yesteryear, if you will. Like they did have to be in secret. Like women, I can't remember what decade, but or not decade, century. Uh, the lesbian women would go to work looking more feminine with dresses and stuff, and then they would uh, go to their bars or wherever they hung out. It's mostly the gay bars, and then they would dress the way they wanted to, and yeah, that was secret. And maybe, I don't know about teenagers. I don't think anybody really talks about teenagers back in the day, but I'm sure that there was something kind of hidden there too. And it makes sense, but there's no, like, altering of your body when you're gay or lesbian. You don't have to cut anything up. You don't need to shave your head. You don't need to grow out your hair to, like, this is what lesbians look like, so I have to grow it out or something. Or I have to shave it or something like that. There is no standard. Yeah, I wrote down the word charlatan, and that's what it feels like. And it's definitely not. I feel like it can't be compared to gay and lesbian. I just really don't think so. I think that'd be kind of an unfair comparison. Going off of that, like, Lucy became more mysterious and aggressive and withholding because now that she's on testosterone, uh, the aggression obviously comes from testosterone, but also, when you hold secret, my cat's over there. When you hold secrets, it starts to build up, and when you're living a lie, you become, and when you're living a lie, things just, you can't keep up with your own lies, so it makes you more irritable. And then add on testosterone, and your body's not meant to have this much testosterone. It just nothing connects. And but this is what I did too. I became, well, I would tell my mom more about it, but I I would still be mysterious in the way that I would, like, with buying the binder. Aggression. I can definitely relate to aggression. I was a lot more. I would also, like Lucy, I would fly off the handle if my mom or my brothers or whoever would say the wrong pronoun or use my birth name. I would I would just get so mad at them. And so, like, obviously Lucy's doing the same thing. So, and then what Lucy would do, I don't believe I did this, but like Lucy and like other girls just like her will start using buzzwords to justify and defend herself, as if they really hold any meaning. Like, she would say to her mom, "Oh, you're gatekeeping. You're a gatekeeper. You're a transphobe," and I see that very, very frequently. Like, I'm gonna shut you down and call you a transphobe. Your opinion doesn't matter because you're a transphobe, and it doesn't mean anything. It's meaningless. I kind of wanted to talk about transphobia, but this is not the place to do it. For gatekeeping, it's meant to protect you from yourself. That's what gatekeeping is for. I mean, gatekeeping and other things, that doesn't apply here. Gatekeeping in the trans ideology, it's to protect you from yourself. Transphobia, that's like, your mom's not transphobic. She's concerned about you. And you're being kind of an ungrateful child. But, that's what teens do, so it kind of makes sense. And I wrote down a single word on my next point, and it's cult. Because especially the way that she wrote it with the baptismal thing in the rebirth and all that, it's like, that's kind of how cults draw you in. But um, I don't want to talk about that in this episode, this video. I don't want to get into that because there's just so much to unpack with that. And then she goes on to more statistics and says, and I've said this before too, but she has a different source, which I will copy and paste from her book into my description. So if anybody's curious, can look into that. So she says 70% of kids grow out of what I prefer to call it gender identity disorder, not gender dysphoria, but whatever. Before 2012, girls with gender dysphoria were non-existent. It was primarily boys. Boys would have this. Boys would want to see themselves as girls instead, which was very interesting. I never knew that. So the trans ideology frees girls from anxiety. Or I think this is a quote. Frees them from anxiety. It satisfies the deepest need for acceptance, the thrill of transgression, and the seductive lilt of belonging, which is very important to note. And then she talks about another girl who calls herself Kyle and says, um, that she had found when she was 14, I think. She found Chase Ross, which is uppercase Chase, who I don't know too much about them, but it's just kind of funny because I had talked to Chase when I was about 16 years old. I don't remember what I had said, and I'm pretty sure I deleted the conversation that we had because it was so embarrassing. I go up to them and I'm like, it probably said something like pertaining kind of to uh, trans stuff, and then they were just like, I just remember it being really awkward, and it like the interaction ended as quickly as it started, and we never spoke again. And I'm pretty sure I was like so mortified from the interaction that I just quickly uh, deleted the whole entire conversation. But it's just kind of weird, like Kyle contacts Chase and they're like, "Oh man, tell me, how do I do this?" Chase is like, "Here, I'll give you the answers." And then meanwhile, I get nothing. Abigail then reveals the abuse. I would call it abuse for sure. Abuse teens commit to their parents under the ideology, calling parents obstacles, bigots, and dupes, which I would say is something that I kind of did with my family as well. I considered my mom an obstacle for sure. I don't know about dupes. Uh, if I had the buzzwords, I probably would have called her a bigot too, unfortunately. Which you know, uh, teens themselves are revered. Teens, from their other teenage friends and stuff, are revered as brave heroes for being able to overcome said obstacles. So, when they get onto hormones, if they shave their head or they get top surgery, there's this audience going like, "Oh my god, you did it, that's so great, we're proud of you." Kind of a little weird. I mean, I didn't get that because I didn't have all that many friends. I was still quite socially awkward even with like these people who could have supported me, which is kind of weird. I am definitely the black sheep no matter where I am. Anyway, so yeah, so that's it for her thing, and I wanted to end this on like the themes that I've noticed. So it seems to always be like very intelligent, talented girls, young women, whether they're gender non-conforming or not, it really doesn't matter. It's their biggest flaw is being socially awkward or social failures, and I was that too. I was also a social failure. I didn't I wasn't able to get along with other girls, and they are surrounded by toxic femininity, which isolates them and pushes them into the crowd of boys, which to them, myself included, seems more freeing. And yet these girls will go into gay and lesbian clubs at school, whether it's college or high school, uh, and this is where they find other girls who are like them, then they transition. So I noted that masculinity in men, like hanging out with boys, that wasn't a trigger. It was these other girls, this group of girls toting around gender dysphoria. That is the trigger. Boys have nothing to do with it. Masculinity has nothing to do with it. And one of the other themes that I see here is I can only succeed if I'm a male. Like, these girls are intelligent, and because they're so intelligent, usually when somebody is really boy or girl, when they're like really smart, when they're very smart, very intelligent, they tend to not really socially succeed very well. I don't perfectly understand why, but I'm sure someone else can explain why. But, you know, and these just these more intelligent people don't really mix in with, like in this case when it comes to a girl with other girls, and like I said, the toxic femininity thing, it's like these girls are gonna focus on kind of being catty and kind of, no offense, but kind of ridiculous. And so these intelligent girls see that and they're like, I can't compete with this because we're not even in the same ballpark. I'm not into that stuff that they're into. And, and I can relate to that, obviously. Um, being, I couldn't relate to other girls as well because they were being very feminine in a way. And that was just something I wasn't doing. They weren't interested in the things that I was interested in. And not that I'm saying my interests were above, but I'm saying like it was just different. And they weren't interested in that because, not because it's more masculine, but because it was just different. And so these girls will find these other groups of girls, and that's finally where they think that that's where they belong. And and they and that's where internalized misogyny comes in. Like I said, like I can only succeed if I'm male. Because boys think about these things. They, boys will be academically successful. Boys are thinking of certain abstract concepts. Other girls, they don't do that. And it's that comparison. Like, because they see the majority of other girls being, uh, being into very stereotypically feminine things and just wanting to talk pretty much about other boys, pretty much, sex, sexuality, or whatever else is on the market. I don't know. I didn't experience it. I don't know what other girls talk about when they're really young. I didn't know. Yeah. So then they meet. So then they think like, if that's the majority, if this is what girlhood means, and I don't match that, and therefore, and because I feel more relaxed around boys, that must therefore mean I must be a guy. One of the reasons why these mostly girls will go into this trans ideology is because it bears the gift of social success, which is what they want the most. It almost doesn't matter how supportive the family unit is. It's being socially acceptable. And when you have friends who support you, and your family, but mostly your friends, you become more confident in your abilities. And that's what solidifies how being trans must really be working, because I have all these friends that are cheering me on, and they probably get into relationships with the ideology, and it just looks like everything's peachy keen and everything works. So yeah, that's the introduction. That's all I have to say about it. I'm gonna move on to chapter 1 in the next video. Yeah, so that's it. That's all I got. Very interesting book so far. I like it. Anyway, goodbye.